The autumn of 1307 cast long shadows across the stone keeps of France. Dawn had barely broken on Friday, October 13th, when royal officials bearing the seal of King Philip IV moved with swift precision throughout the kingdom. In hushed tones, they carried sealed orders not to be opened until the first light of day. Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, had returned to Paris from Cyprus earlier that year. At 63, his beard now white as the Templar mantle, he carried himself with the dignity befitting the leader of Christendom's most powerful military order. The previous night, de Molay had stood proud as a pallbearer at the funeral of Catherine of Courtenay, wife of Philip IV's brother. Such was the Templars' standing that their Grand Master served alongside royalty. None could have imagined that by nightfall the next day he would be in chains. As morning light flooded the Templar headquarters at the Paris Temple, royal guards surrounded the formidable complex. The temple, a city within a city, housed not only the warrior monks, but also the royal treasury of France, a testament to the Templars' reputation for financial acumen and trustworthiness. The sealed orders, now opened, revealed King Philip's shocking command: arrest all Templars on charges of heresy, blasphemy, and unholy practices. The accusations were as numerous as they were grotesque: idol worship, denying Christ, obscene initiation rituals, and unnatural acts between brothers of the order. Within hours, hundreds of Templars across France found themselves dragged from their beds and commanderies. Many were bewildered. These men had dedicated their lives to the protection of Christian pilgrims and the defense of the Holy Land. Now they stood accused of serving the very darkness they had sworn to fight. Jacques de Molay himself was seized while at prayer. Witnesses reported his dignified silence as iron shackles replaced the golden chains of office he had worn just hours before it. By nightfall, the Paris Temple, once impregnable, had been breached not by siege engines but by royal decree. The Templar wealth, rumored to be vast beyond measure, immediately became the subject of frantic searches. Royal officials combed through chambers, storerooms, and treasuries. Yet something curious was noted by several chroniclers. Many of the expected riches were already gone. Guillaume de Nogret, Philip's ruthless advisor who had orchestrated the arrests, was particularly disappointed. The king's coffers were empty after years of costly wars with England and Flanders. The Templar treasure, which Philip desperately needed to seize, seemed mysteriously diminished. Interrogations began immediately, with methods that would haunt European history for centuries. Torture, sanctioned by both crown and papal authorities, extracted confessions from even the most steadfast knights. Hot irons, bone-crushing devices, and starvation broke bodies and spirits alike. Yet amid the horror, peculiar inconsistencies emerged. Some Templars, even under the most excruciating torments, maintained tales of secret convoys leaving Paris and other preceptories in the weeks before the arrests. Wagon trains under cover of darkness, galleys setting sail from La Rochelle, documents burned and hidden. One night, Gerard de Villers, preceptor of France, was never captured. Records indicated he fled with 50 horses and a heavy load of unspecified goods belonging to the order. 18 Templar ships from their Mediterranean fleet vanished from the harbor of La Rochelle on the Atlantic coast, never to be seen again. Pope Clement V, residing in Avignon, rather than Rome, initially protested the arrests. The Templars answered only to the Pope, not to secular authorities. Yet Clement's protests gradually weakened under Philip's political pressure and the weight of the extracted confessions. By 1312, the Pope dissolved the order at the Council of Vienne, although he stopped short of declaring the Templars guilty. Their vast properties throughout Christendom were transferred to the Knights Hospitaller, their eternal rivals, though Philip ensured the French crown kept a substantial portion. 7 years after the initial arrests, on March 18, 1314, Jacques de Molay faced his final moments on a small island in the Seine River. Recanting his forced confession, he declared the order innocent of all charges. The flames of his pyre rose high against the Paris sky, visible from Notre Dame Cathedral. Legend holds that with his dying breath, de Molay cursed both Philip and Clement, summoning them to meet him before God's judgment within the year. Whether by coincidence or something more mysterious, both king and pope were dead within months, Clement from illness in April, Philip from a hunting accident in November. As the embers of de Molay's pyre cooled, questions about the Templar treasure grew hot in the minds of many. Where had their fabled wealth gone? For a military order once so rich it could lend money to kings and popes, the seized assets seemed but a fraction of what should have been found. Rumors spread through medieval Europe of secret contingency plans, of treasures spirited away to Scotland, Portugal, or hidden locations throughout France. The Templars, masters of logistics and planning, had built their reputation on protecting valuables. Had they protected their own? The last documented Templars disappeared from official records, but whispers persisted of networks operating in shadows, of knights who shed their white mantles for peasant garb, of sacred knowledge preserved and passed down through generations in code and cipher. Thus began one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. What happened to the legendary treasure of the Knights Templar, as royal agents combed empty vaults and questioned knights who would take secrets to their graves? The first threads of a 700-year mystery began to unravel. What exactly constituted the Templar treasure? The question has tantalized historians, treasure hunters, and conspiracy theorists for centuries. At its most basic level, the order's wealth consisted of gold and silver coins, bullion, and precious gems, the tangible assets of Europe's first multinational banking organization. The Templars had developed an innovative system of banking that allowed pilgrims to deposit funds in Europe and withdraw them in the Holy Land, using coded letters rather than carrying dangerous amounts of currency. This system generated enormous wealth through fees and currency exchange. By the early 14th century, their properties spanned Europe and the Middle East, some 9,000 manors and farms, castles, fortified preceptories, and churches. From these holdings came agricultural products, rents, donations, and tithes, creating a river of wealth flowing into Templar coffers. More intriguing than mere monetary riches were the sacred relics the knights allegedly accumulated during their occupation of Jerusalem's Temple Mount. For nearly a century they had headquartered at Al-Aqsa Mosque, which they believed was built upon the ruins of Solomon's Temple. The most persistent legend claims they discovered something of extraordinary significance beneath the Temple Mount, perhaps the Ark of the Covenant itself, containing the original stone tablets of the Ten Commandments. or fragments of the true cross upon which Christ was crucified. Other accounts speak of the Holy Grail, whether a literal cup used at the Last Supper or a symbolic bloodline with metaphysical implications. Such an artifact would have represented power beyond any worldly treasure, a direct connection to divine authority that would transcend that of kings or popes. Medieval chroniclers recorded claims about ancient scrolls and texts recovered from hidden vaults beneath Jerusalem. These supposedly contained esoteric knowledge from pre-Christian traditions, preserving wisdom from Egyptian, Babylonian, and early Judaic sources that contradicted church doctrine. The Templars' extensive contact with Islamic and Jewish scholars in Jerusalem gave them access to mathematical, astronomical, and architectural knowledge largely unknown in medieval Europe. Some suggest this knowledge itself constituted a treasure more valuable than gold or relics. More pragmatic historians point to mundane, but still impressive assets, carefully maintained financial records, deeds to properties throughout Europe, and the Levant, and diplomatic agreements with various monarchs and nobles that ensured the order's privileges and autonomy. Ibn al-Furat, a Muslim chronicler, described witnessing Templars loading 1,000 camel loads of gold and silver onto ships at Acre during the final Christian retreat from the Holy Land in 1291. While likely exaggerated, his account reinforces the magnitude of wealth the order transported when Philip IV's men raided the Paris Temple in 1307. They reportedly found substantial coinage and precious items, but not the legendary hoard expected. Most tellingly, they discovered empty strong rooms and evidence of recent, hasty departures, suggesting an organized evacuation of valuables. The Chinon parchment, rediscovered in the Vatican Secret Archives in 2001, revealed that Pope Clement V privately absolved the Templars of heresy charges in 1308, contradicting his public condemnation. Did this secret absolution facilitate the protection of Templar assets by sympathetic parties? Persistent accounts tell of a massive Templar fleet that set sail from La Rochelle just before the arrests. The order maintained naval power in both the Mediterranean and Atlantic with specially designed ships capable of transporting heavy cargo. Where did these ships go, and what did they carry? Some legends claim the treasure found its way to Switzerland, explaining the later emergence of Swiss banking and its famous secrecy. Others point to Scotland, where Robert the Bruce, himself excommunicated by the Pope, allegedly sheltered. Templar knights who fought for him at Bannockburn in 1314. Portugal offers another intriguing possibility. There the order was not dissolved but simply renamed as the Order of Christ, with the same knights, properties, and presumably access to whatever resources had been hidden. The famous navigator Vasco da Gama sailed under their distinctive cross. The Templars' reputed mathematical and navigational expertise has led to theories that they reached the Americas long before Columbus, perhaps hiding their most valuable treasures in remote locations beyond European reach. Ancient stone structures in New England and cryptic carvings fuel such speculation. Separating fact from medieval fantasy remains challenging. The Templars were indeed wealthy, and much of their wealth did seemingly vanish. Whether this represents a deliberate hiding of treasure or simply the inevitable dissolution of assets following their suppression remains fiercely debated. What cannot be disputed is the power of this lost treasure. has held over the imagination for 7 centuries. Beyond mere gold or silver, it represents something more profound, the possibility of hidden knowledge, of alternative histories, of secrets powerful enough to change the course of civilization. As the medieval era gave way to the Renaissance. The legend of the Templar treasure transformed from recent scandal to embedded mystery, from current events to whispered myth. With each passing generation, the story grew, incorporating new elements, reflecting changing fears and fascinations. For those who sought it in the centuries that followed, the treasure represented different things: untold riches, proof of conspiracy, evidence of heresy or vindication of faith. The search itself would become a journey through the shadowy borderlands where history meets myth and fact blurs into fiction. The earliest surviving accounts of the Templar suppression come from chroniclers who witnessed the events firsthand. Jean de Saint Victor, a monk at the Abbey of Saint Victor in Paris, recorded with evident shock how all the Templars in the Kingdom of France were seized in a single day. His contemporary, the Florentine banker and chronicler Giovanni Villani, noted the financial motivation behind the arrests. The King of France and his children were poor due to wars, so coveting the great wealth of the temple, they conspired with the Pope to find a reason to destroy them. Perhaps most revealing is the account of the continuator of William of Nangus, who observed that in the Paris temple much was sought but little found, which caused no small amazement. This cryptic statement, written around 1340, provides the first suggestion that the expected treasure had already vanished. The Chronicle of St. Denis, an official royal history, presents the official narrative: Templars as heretics justly punished. But even here, inconsistencies appear. A chronicler appears uncomfortable with certain details, particularly the extreme torture methods and the seeming haste of the proceedings. Outside France, accounts were more skeptical of Philip's motives. English chroniclers like Walter of Gisborough openly suggested the charges were pretexts for seizing wealth. The Scottish chronicler John of Fordun later connected the appearance of mysterious knights at Bannockburn with Templar refugees. By the 5th-10th century, as the Renaissance dawned, scholars began examining these earlier accounts with more critical eyes. Platina Bartolomeo Sacchi, the Vatican librarian, wrote in his Lives of the Popes that Clement V had succumbed to Philip's pressure for reasons of state rather than religion. The first detailed analysis of the missing Templar treasure appeared in Francesco Pegolotti's Pratica della Mercatura, a merchant's handbook from the 1340s. He noted discrepancies between documented Templar wealth from banking activities and the assets seized by various European crowns. During the Reformation, Protestant historians seized upon the Templar story as evidence of Catholic corruption. John Fox's Acts and Monuments, 1563, portrayed the Templars as early Protestant martyrs who had questioned church authority and been punished for possessing forbidden knowledge. The Counter-Reformation produced Catholic responses, such as Caesar Erroneous's Annal Ecclesiastici, which reasserted the guilt of the Templars while acknowledging Philip's financial motivations. Baronius had access to Vatican records unavailable to others, making his guarded admissions particularly significant. The Enlightenment brought more scholarly approaches. Pierre de Pai's Histoire de l'Ordre Militaire des Templiers, 1654, was the first comprehensive study based on original documents from French archives. Dupuy established that torture had produced contradictory confessions and highlighted the mysterious fleet departures. Voltaire, in his essay on the customs and spirit of nations, 1756, characterized the Templar trials as one of history's most atrocious events, suggesting that the knights had been victims of ignorance and superstition allied with envy, avarice, and cruelty. Yet he remained silent on the fate of their wealth. German historian Friedrich Wilkins, Geschichte der Kreuzzüge, 1807, connected the rise of Freemasonry with Templar survivors, citing similarities in symbols and rituals. This thesis, though speculative, powerfully influenced subsequent historical and popular interpretations. The 19th century's romantic fascination with medieval history produced Jules Michelet's groundbreaking work on the Templar trials. His examination of original interrogation records revealed patterns, suggesting coached testimonies and preordained conclusions, casting further doubt on the official narrative. In 1877, German historian Heinrich Fink discovered previously unknown documents in the Crown of Aragon archives, including letters from King James II expressing disbelief in the charges. These revealed widespread contemporary skepticism among Europe's rulers about Philip's allegations. Archaeological discoveries occasionally corroborated aspects of the historical accounts. In 1890, a hidden chamber discovered during renovations at a former Templar preceptory in Normandy contained several gold coins and a seal of Jacques de Molay, suggestive of hasty concealment before the arrests. The late 19th century saw the first scholarly attempts to trace the Templar treasure. Beyond 1307, Charles Genevieve. Effel's detailed study of Portuguese maritime archives uncovered financial connections between the rechristened Order of Christ and early Atlantic explorations, suggesting continued access to substantial resources. As archival sciences advanced, historians gained access to previously sealed records. Vatican researcher Heinrich de Nifl's examination of Clement. These registers revealed the Pope's private doubts about the proceedings, even as he publicly condemned the order, raising questions about potential hidden arrangements. The most significant 20th century contribution came from French historian Regin Pernoud, whose meticulous analysis of banking records demonstrated that Templar financial activities stopped abruptly several weeks before the arrests, with large transfers directed toward mysterious recipients not identified in the ledgers. Malcolm Barber's definitive modern history. The Trial of the Templars, 1978, carefully distinguished between documented facts and later embellishments, while acknowledging the genuine mystery surrounding the order's financial dissolution. Even with scholarly caution, he concluded that substantial assets were never accounted for. Between these sober historical assessments and wild speculations lies a persistent truth. Despite intensive investigations spanning centuries, no definitive explanation accounts for the apparent disappearance of Templar wealth. The historical record contains genuine gaps that continue to tantalize researchers. As archaeological methods and archival research became more sophisticated, these gaps narrowed but never closed entirely. Like a palimpsest with certain passages deliberately erased, the story of the Templar treasure remains fragmentary, offering glimpses of a truth that seems always just beyond reach. The Templars left behind no treasure maps with convenient X marks, but they did leave something potentially more valuable: an architectural legacy filled with unusual symbolism. Their round churches, modeled after Jerusalem's Church of the Holy Sepulchre, contain geometric relationships that continue to puzzle experts. The Temple Church in London, built in 1185, incorporates precise mathematical ratios that some researchers believe encode specific geographical coordinates. Its circular nave, when analyzed using sacred geometry principles, yields proportions matching those of both Solomon's Temple and certain European sites. Perhaps the most analyzed Templar site is Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland, built by William Sinclair in the 15th century after the order's dissolution. Though not strictly a Templar structure, its construction coincides with theories of Templar refugees in Scotland, and its extraordinary symbolism suggests connections to Templar traditions. Rosslyn's intricate stone carvings include plants from the Americas that predate Columbus, leading to speculation about Templar transatlantic voyages. More compelling are the musical cubes carved on the chapel ceiling -213 blocks with unique patterns that musicologists have recently decoded into medieval melodies. In France, the Château de Gisors became a focal point for treasure hunters. After the prison confession of Roger Lomoy in 1946, who claimed to have discovered a hidden underground chapel containing statues of 30 metal knights. Though his story lacks verification, the castle does contain unexplained subterranean structures. The village of Rennes-le-Château in southern France achieved fame through the mysterious activities of its 19th century priest, Berenger Saunière, who suddenly displayed inexplicable wealth. Some believe he discovered Templar documents revealing treasure locations, though conclusive evidence remains elusive. Templar symbolism extends beyond architecture to encoded language. The famous Etbash cipher, a simple Hebrew substitution code, has been applied to various Templar inscriptions, yielding provocative but ambiguous results. More complex ciphers potentially employ both visual symbols and numerical values. The Templars' distinctive seal, 2 knights riding a single horse, symbolizing their initial poverty, evolved over time to incorporate more esoteric elements. Later variations included astronomical symbols and geometric patterns that some researchers interpret as star charts pointing to specific locations. Several medieval manuscripts associated with Templar circles contain what appear to be encoded messages. The mysterious Livre Rouge, Red Book, allegedly compiled by Templars in southern France, combines apparently innocuous religious text with unusual illustrations that may constitute a pictographic code. The Paris Temple itself, destroyed during the French Revolution, contained architectural anomalies documented in pre-revolutionary surveys. These included peculiar orientation alignments and a specific chamber beneath the main tower, with wall markings described as resembling a celestial chart. Recent digital analysis of Templar churches throughout Europe has revealed consistent patterns of sacred geometry. When mapped collectively, these create intersecting lines that converge at several specific points, most notably in the Languedoc region of France, long associated with Cathar heretics and hidden treasures. The Templars' documented interest in astronomy may provide another avenue for understanding potential codes. Several Templar sites align precisely with astronomical events on significant Christian dates, creating what researchers call light keys. specific illumination patterns visible only at particular moments. Modern cryptographers have applied advanced pattern recognition algorithms to Templar artifacts with intriguing results. A 2015 study of repeated symbols in Templar churches identified consistent mathematical relationships, suggesting deliberate encoding rather than mere decorative repetition. The Chinon parchment, containing Pope Clement's secret absolution of the Templars itself, employs unusual notarial symbols and abbreviations beyond standard practice of the period. Some scholars believe these constitute a secondary layer of information, comprehensible only to initiates familiar with Templar codes. Archaeological excavations at Templar sites occasionally uncover objects with unexplained markings. A lead coffer discovered beneath the floor of a Templar chapel in Provence in 1997 contained a copper scroll inscribed with symbols that combine elements of Hebrew, Arabic, and Greek characters in no known language. The Templars' banking system necessitated secure communication methods across vast distances. Their innovative financial instruments required verification systems to prevent forgery. Documentary evidence confirms they employed coded language and correspondence, though few examples survive. Persistent legends speak of the Templar cipher, supposedly an unbreakable code used for the order's most sensitive communications. While no authenticated examples exist, contemporary descriptions suggest a sophisticated system, combining substitution ciphers with physical keys required for decryption. Perhaps most tantalizing are the carved stone heads found in certain Templar churches, often hidden in shadows or placed where only those who knew where to look would find them. These enigmatic faces sometimes incorporate written characters in their design, visible only under specific lighting conditions. The Templars' interaction with Islamic scholarship exposed them to advanced mathematical concepts, including encryption, methods developed by Arab mathematicians. The order's documented interest in Islamic scientific works suggests they may have adapted such techniques for their own purposes. What makes Templar symbolism particularly challenging to interpret is its multi-layered nature. Physical locations, architectural elements, artistic motifs, mathematical relationships, astronomical alignments, and textual ciphers potentially work together as components of a comprehensive system for preserving and transmitting information. If the Templars indeed concealed vast treasures, whether material or knowledge-based, these encoded messages may constitute the ultimate key to their discovery. Yet the very complexity of the potential system ensures that only those with a complete cipher or extraordinary insight could hope to unlock its secrets. As medieval historian Barbara Fralla noted, the Templars created a communication system that has successfully kept its secrets for 7 centuries. Whether by design or fortunate accident, they developed encryption methods sophisticated enough to resist decryption even by modern techniques. The first recorded Templar treasure hunt began almost immediately after the suppression. In 1307, Philip IV himself authorized excavations beneath the Paris temple. After interrogations suggested hidden vaults, royal officials spent months searching, but found only common treasures, not the rumored extraordinary wealth. According to the royal treasurer's accounts, Philip's men breached several hidden chambers that showed signs of recent emptying. One contained empty chests with traces of gold dust. Another held partially burned documents, tantalizing evidence that something valuable had been removed shortly before the arrests. In 1323, Pope John XXII issued a bull condemning unauthorized excavations at former Templar properties, suggesting widespread treasure hunting activity. The document specifically mentioned night diggers who claimed to seek unholy objects, but were clearly searching for more worldly treasures. The earliest documented private expedition occurred in 1347 when Tuscan merchant Francesco Pegolotti financed excavations at a former Templar commandery near Siena. His business records detail expenses for workers and special equipment, but end abruptly with a cryptic notation about matters better left unwritten. During the 100 Years' War, English forces occupying parts of France conducted systematic searches of former Templar properties. A letter from Henry V to his treasurer in 1421 references certain valuable objects formerly belonging to the Chi Temple recovered from a site near Poitiers. The first royal-sponsored expedition outside France took place under James II of Scotland in 1438. Court records describe a 6-month endeavor at various properties once held by the warriors of the Temple, yielding certain documents and artifacts subsequently stored in Edinburgh Castle's treasury. Renaissance Italy saw treasure hunting evolve into something resembling scientific archaeology. Lorenzo de' Medici financed excavations at Templar sites in Tuscany during the 1480s, employing scholars to interpret inscriptions and symbols. His private correspondence mentions discoveries of significant scholarly interest, but offers no specifics. The Reformation period brought renewed interest as Protestant scholars sought evidence of early church corruption. In 1557, German antiquarian Heinrich Cornelius Agrippa led excavations at several Rhineland Templar sites, guided by his interpretation of symbolic carvings as indicators pointing toward hidden chambers. Spanish conquistadors, oddly enough, connected Templar legends to their New World explorations. Hernan Courts reportedly carried documents relating to Templar naval charts, and his extraordinary determination to locate specific temples suggests he sought something beyond mere conquest and plunder. The systematic destruction of the Paris Temple during the French Revolution revealed no dramatic discoveries, but eyewitness accounts describe revolutionary officials removing certain objects of peculiar nature before the demolition began. These items disappeared into private collections or were possibly destroyed. Napoleon Bonaparte, influenced by his exposure to Egyptian mysteries, developed a scholarly interest in Templar secrets. His Egyptian campaign included a little-known secondary mission to investigate sites in the Holy Land with Templar connections. The results remain classified in French military archives. The Victorian era brought a fusion of scholarly research and romantic treasure hunting. In 1867, Scottish antiquarian James Drummond organized the first excavation of Rosslyn Chapel's foundations, discovering a sealed vault that unfortunately collapsed before its contents could be fully documented. French mining engineer Louis de Saulcy applied industrial techniques to treasure hunting in 1886, using early metal detectors and systematic soil sampling at former Templar sites in Languedoc. His expedition journal records several anomalous readings and the recovery of a lead tube containing an encrypted parchment. The most notorious 19th century expedition was financed by Austrian banker Karl von Rothschild in 1894, employing a team of historians, cryptographers, and excavation specialists. He conducted a year-long investigation centered on the former Templar fortress at Dong in southern France. Rothschild's expedition recovered several artifacts with Templar symbols and what appeared to be map fragments before local authorities halted the increasingly disruptive excavations. Rothschild's finds disappeared into his private collection, and his expedition notes remain sealed in the family archives. These early treasure hunts shared common elements despite spanning 6 centuries. Most followed similar patterns. Initial excitement based on some documentary discovery or local legend, promising early findings, then ultimately inconclusive results, often accompanied by claims of interference or suppression. What distinguishes Templar treasure hunting from ordinary treasure seeking is the consistent pattern of apparent near misses, as if the searchers repeatedly came tantalizingly close to something significant. Many expeditions ended not with discouragement, but with heightened conviction that something remained just beyond reach. Another curious pattern emerges in these historical accounts: the frequent disappearance of recovered artifacts into private collections, government vaults, or religious repositories, removed from public scrutiny and scholarly analysis. This persistent pattern of secrecy fueled suspicions that powerful interests sought to suppress discoveries. The motivations of these early treasure hunters evolved over time. Medieval searchers sought primarily gold and valuables. Renaissance expeditions added interest in ancient knowledge. Enlightenment-era quests often focused on documents that might challenge ecclesiastical authority. Victorian hunters combined all these motivations. By the late 19th century, the search for Templar treasure had evolved from simple treasure hunting into something more complex, a multidisciplinary quest involving historians, cryptographers, archaeologists, and even early practitioners of what would later be called forensic accounting. What these varied searchers shared was a conviction that the Templar mystery represented more than an ordinary lost treasure. Whether seeking gold, artifacts, or knowledge, they sensed that whatever the Templars had concealed was something of profound significance. Something worth hiding for centuries. As one Victorian treasure hunter wrote in his journal, "We seek not merely wealth, but answers to questions that have haunted Europe for 600 years. The Templar treasure, whatever its nature, represents a deliberate act of historical concealment, the intentional creation of a mystery meant to endure." The dissolution of the Templars created a vacuum in European power structures, a void quickly filled by various organizations, some claiming direct or indirect Templar heritage. The most prominent of these, Freemasonry, emerged publicly in early 18th century London, but traced its mythic origins to much earlier times. Masonic ritual and symbolism contain numerous elements reminiscent of Templar traditions, particularly in the higher degrees, such as the Knight Templar rank found in certain Masonic systems. These similarities prompted 18th century historian Andrew Michael Ramsay to propose a direct lineage between the organizations. The Scottish connection provides particularly compelling evidence. After the Templar suppression, Scotland, then at war with England and under papal interdict, offered a potential refuge for fleeing knights. The sudden appearance of unusual stone carvings with Templar-like symbolism at Rosslyn coincides with this period. The St. Clair, later Sinclair, family builders of Rosslyn Chapel became hereditary Grand Masters of Scottish Masonry. Their dual connection to both suspected Templar refugees and early Masonic organization creates a plausible transmission vector for Templar traditions, symbols, and, potentially, secrets. More controversial theories suggest that rather than creating Freemasonry, surviving Templars infiltrated existing guild structures as cover for their continued activities. This infiltration theory points to the sudden transformation of practical stonemasons guilds into philosophical societies accepting non-Masons as speculative members. In France, the connection appears more explicit. When Freemasonry emerged there in the 1720s, early lodges showed particular interest in Templar history. The Scottish Rite degrees, despite their name, were primarily developed in France and contain elaborate ceremonies specifically referencing Templar knowledge and treasure. The strict observance, a German Masonic system founded by Baron von Hund in the 1750s, explicitly claimed Templar continuation. Von Hund asserted that he had been initiated by unknown superiors surviving Templar leaders who had maintained their organization in unbroken succession since the suppression. Von Hund's claims included detailed accounts of how the Templar treasure had been hidden and protected through a centuries-long conspiracy. While many dismissed his assertions, his system attracted numerous European aristocrats and intellectuals who conducted serious historical research seeking verification. The French Revolution brought another dimension to these connections. Documents discovered during the revolutionary period suggested links between Templar banking techniques and the emerging European banking families. Some theorists propose that Templar financial expertise and possibly wealth found its way into these banking dynasties. The Rothschild banking family, rising to prominence in the early 19th century, became a particular focus of such theories. Their rapid acquisition of extraordinary wealth, sophisticated international banking operations, and occasional interest in Templar-related historical research fueled speculation about possible connections. Napoleon's Egyptian campaign unexpectedly strengthened Templar Masonic theories. French officers, many of them Freemasons, discovered archaeological evidence suggesting that Templar Knights had accessed Egyptian mystery traditions during the Crusades, potentially explaining certain symbolic elements in Masonic ritual. The 19th century saw the emergence of more esoteric organizations claiming Templar heritage. The Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, the Ordo Templi Orientis, and similar groups incorporated Templar symbols and legends into their systems, often suggesting they possessed secret knowledge preserved from the original order. The Catholic Church maintained consistent opposition to both Freemasonry and these esoteric orders, issuing multiple papal condemnations. Some researchers interpret this persistent hostility as evidence that church authorities believe these organizations genuinely possessed Templar secrets potentially threatening to ecclesiastical authority. Swiss banking secrecy laws formalized in 1934, but based on traditions dating to the 18th century, prompted theories connecting Swiss banking practices to Templar financial techniques. The similarity between the Swiss flag and the Templar cross, though likely coincidental, reinforced these speculative connections. More politically charged theories emerged in the early 20th century, suggesting Templar wealth had funded a centuries-long conspiracy controlling European finance and politics. These theories, often tinged with anti-Semitism, distorted legitimate historical questions about Templar survival into dangerous conspiracy narratives. Scholarly examination reveals a more nuanced reality, while direct organizational continuity between the Templars and modern secret societies remains unproven. Clear evidence exists for cultural and symbolic transmission. Ideas, symbols, and traditions demonstrably passed from the medieval order into later organizations. The question of the treasure itself presents greater complications. No modern organization has produced irrefutable evidence of possessing Templar wealth or artifacts. However, persistent rumors surround certain private collections and institutional vaults, particularly those of the Vatican's secret archives and various banking families. The Scottish Rite Freemasons maintain what they call the Temple Treasury, a collection of artifacts allegedly preserved from the original order. While open to scholarly examination, carbon dating and provenance analysis have yielded inconclusive results, with some items clearly authentic and others apparent later reproductions. Vatican archaeologist Barbara Fralla's 2001 discovery of the Chinon parchment demonstrating Pope Clement's secret absolution of the Templars raised new questions. If this crucial document remained hidden in Vatican archives for 7 centuries, what other Templar-related materials might still lie undiscovered in institutional repositories? The digital age brought new approaches to these ancient mysteries. Computer analysis of banking records, property transfers, and shipping manifests from the critical 1307 to 1314 period has identified patterns, suggesting coordinated movement of assets through networks of sympathetic nobles, merchants, and clergy. DNA studies of descendants from families historically connected to the Templars have revealed unexpected genetic links between certain European banking dynasties and lineages directly descended from known Templar knights. While not evidence of conspiracy, these connections suggest more complex relationships than previously recognized. Modern archaeological techniques applied to Templar sites continue to yield provocative discoveries. Ground-penetrating radar surveys conducted at the Portuguese Templar headquarters at Tomar in 2018 identified previously unknown subterranean chambers that remain unexplored due to preservation concerns, institutional restrictions. The persistent question remains: if Templar knowledge, traditions, and possibly wealth passed into subsequent organizations, why has no definitive evidence emerged? Skeptics cite this absence as proof that no significant treasure existed or survived. Others suggest a more intriguing possibility, that the secret of the treasure includes methods for ensuring it remains secret. As historian Malcolm Barber observed, the most perfect conspiracy would be one that conceals not only its activities, but its very existence. If Templar wealth and knowledge survive in modern institutions, the greatest proof of its successful transmission would be our inability to definitively prove that transmission. From medieval monarchs to modern researchers, the quest to unravel the Templar mystery continues. As we move into the contemporary era, the search has evolved, employing advanced technologies and methodologies that would have seemed magical to the original knights themselves. The dawn of the 20th century brought new methodologies to the ancient quest. In 1909, English archaeologist Howard Carter, before his Tutankhamun fame, conducted a discreet investigation of Templar sites in Cyprus. His journal entries reference architectural anomalies suggesting concealed spaces in the Colossi Castle near Limassol. Carter's work was interrupted by World War I, during which, curiously, German military intelligence devoted resources to researching Templar banking records. A specialized unit led by historian Otto Rahn sought documentation of asset transfers to Switzerland, suggesting the German High Command believed significant wealth might still be traceable. The interwar period saw French journalist Gerard de Sade began systematic research into Templar activities in Languedoc. His investigation of church archives uncovered property records showing unusual patterns of land acquisition by the order, seemingly random parcels that, when mapped, formed distinct geometric patterns centered on specific mountains. World War II cast dark shadows over Templar research when Heinrich Himmler's SS Ahnenerbe unit conducted forcible excavations at European Templar sites. Their particular focus on the order's supposed esoteric knowledge rather than material treasure represented a sinister turn in the long history of Templar investigations. After the war, treasure hunting acquired a more scientific approach. In 1952, British historian and former intelligence officer Harry Stonehill employed declassified aerial reconnaissance photographs to identify anomalous features at former Templar sites. His team discovered previously unknown underground structures at 3 locations in France and 1 in Scotland. The most controversial post-war expedition involved American oil magnate J. Paul Getty, who privately financed explorations beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem in 1959. Though officially an archaeological study, recently declassified Israeli documents reveal the true objective: locating sealed chambers allegedly accessed by the Templars during their occupation. Getty's expedition ended abruptly after discovering a narrow passage bearing Templar crosses that appeared to extend beneath the dome of the rock. Political sensitivities forced the tunnel's resealing, but ground-penetrating radar confirmed it continued for at least 30 meters before branching in multiple directions. The 1960s witnessed the merger of Templar research with emerging computer technology. IBM researcher Thomas Hoffman developed an early algorithm to analyze medieval banking records, identifying transaction patterns that suggested coordinated Templar fund movements continuing decades after the official suppression. Hoffman's work attracted the attention of Swiss banker Francois Brule, who gained limited access to the archives of several old European banking houses. His confidential 1967 report to the Swiss Banking Association concluded that substantial assets of probable Templar origin entered Swiss repositories between 1307 and 1350. The most flamboyant Templar hunter of the era was certainly British adventurer Peter Robson. His global expeditions from 1968 to 1975 followed leads from Scotland to Ethiopia, culminating in his discovery of a hidden chamber beneath a former Templar commandery in Portugal, containing a stone chest with peculiar astronomical markings. Robson's Portuguese discoveries proved controversial when carbon dating revealed the chest originated from the appropriate period. but academic experts disputed his interpretation of the markings as star charts pointing to other Templar repositories. The chest itself disappeared into private collections after Robson's sudden death in 1976. The 1980s brought renewed scholarly interest alongside sensational claims. Oxford historian Margaret Murray led a disciplined archaeological investigation of Templar financial centers, discovering architectural evidence of sophisticated security measures far beyond medieval standards. Hidden observation posts, false walls, and acoustic warning systems. Meanwhile, best-selling books like Holy Blood, Holy Grail popularized more speculative theories connecting Templars to supposed sacred bloodlines. While academic historians dismissed these works, they sparked public fascination and inspired a new wave of amateur treasure hunters using increasingly sophisticated equipment. Among these enthusiasts was retired NASA engineer Richard Winters, who in 1988 adapted ground-penetrating radar technology for archaeological use. His survey of the Chateau de Gisars in Normandy identified an artificial cavity approximately 12 meters beneath the central keep, a finding later confirmed by French government surveys. The French Ministry of Culture, after initial resistance, authorized limited exploration of this cavity in 1993. Video probes inserted through narrow boreholes revealed a small chamber containing decomposed wooden objects and what appeared to be parchment fragments. Further investigation was halted due to structural concerns. Perhaps the most scientifically rigorous expedition of recent decades was organized by Spanish archaeologist Elena Martinez between 1996 and 2002. Her team conducted comprehensive surveys of all documented Templar properties on the Iberian Peninsula, employing magnetometry, resistivity mapping, and chemical soil analysis. Martinez's findings challenged conventional histories by demonstrating that Templar preceptories were positioned according to precise geometric relationships rather than practical considerations like defensive positioning or agricultural potential. When mapped across the entire peninsula, these sites formed a vast geometric pattern. More provocatively, Martinez discovered that this pattern aligned with similar arrangements of Templar properties in France and the Holy Land. Computer modeling suggested these placements created a sophisticated navigational system, potentially allowing travelers with the proper knowledge to move between safe locations, following mathematical rather than visual guidelines. The digital revolution transformed Templar research through database analysis of disparate historical records. British data scientist James Harrington developed an algorithm in 2004 that cross-referenced property transfers, banking transactions, and shipping records from the critical 1307-1314 period across multiple European archives. Harrington's results identified a network of approximately 180 individuals, nobles, merchants, and clergy who participated in an apparent coordinated effort to shelter Templar assets. Most significantly, his analysis traced the descendants of these individuals into family lines connected to later banking establishments and political structures. Technological advances also revolutionized the examination of Templar sites. Italian architect Paolo Renzi pioneered the use of LIDAR, light detection and ranging, scanning to create precise three-dimensional models of Templar churches in 2007. his team discovered previously unnoticed architectural alignments designed to create specific light effects on particular dates. These light keys, momentary illuminations of specific architectural elements that occur only at precise dates and times, appeared consistently across Templar structures throughout Europe. More intriguingly, they corresponded not to Christian holy days, but to dates significant in older astronomical traditions and early Judaic observances. The most controversial expedition of recent years was undoubtedly financier William Hammond's privately funded underwater archaeology project in the Mediterranean. Beginning in 2010, Hammond employed advanced submersibles to investigate anomalies identified through historical analysis of Templar shipping records and medieval accounts. After 3 years of searching, Hammond's team located the remains of a vessel off the coast of Cyprus that carbon dating confirmed to the early 14th century. Distinctive construction features matched documented Templar naval design, and recovered artifacts included a silver seal bearing Templar insignia alongside unusual astronomical markings. The scientific community remained skeptical until Hammond's most significant find in 2014, a sealed lead container recovered from the wreckage that contained remarkably preserved parchment documents. Independent analysis by conservation experts at the British Museum confirmed their authenticity as Templar financial records from 1307. These documents, written in a complex cipher that took specialists 2 years to decode, detailed the redistribution of Templar assets in the weeks before the arrests. They referenced sacred objects and knowledge beyond price being transported to various locations described in coded language that continues to resist complete decipherment. Academic historians responded with cautious excitement, tempered by methodological concerns. University of Edinburgh medieval specialist Dr. Catherine Wallace noted, while the documents appear genuine, they represent instructions rather than confirmation of completed actions. They tell us what the Templars planned, not what they accomplished. The most recent major expedition began in 2018 when Franco-German archaeological team employed non-invasive technologies at the Templar headquarters in Jerusalem, using a combination of ground-penetrating radar, electrical resistivity tomography, and muon detection, a technique borrowed from nuclear physics. They identified substantial hollow spaces beneath the Temple Mount. Political sensitivities have thus far prevented direct exploration of these spaces, but thermal imaging and remote sensing suggest they contain both structural elements and smaller objects of unknown composition. The location aligns precisely with medieval accounts of Templar excavations beneath their Jerusalem headquarters. As technology advances, so does the sophistication of treasure hunters. Modern expeditions combine historical research, archaeological expertise, cutting-edge technology, and substantial funding. Yet the ultimate prize, definitive proof of what happened to the Templar treasure, remains elusive. Perhaps deliberately so. What distinguishes contemporary Templar research from earlier treasure hunting is its multidisciplinary approach. Today's searchers recognize that the treasure may take forms beyond gold and jewels, encoded knowledge, strategic information, financial instruments, or historical truths potentially more valuable than physical wealth. As architectural historian Bernard Laurent observed, "If the Templars created a system designed to preserve their legacy across centuries, they would have designed it to reveal itself only to those who understood the underlying principles of their worldview. The treasure, in essence, protects itself through the very methodology required to find it." In the realm of Templar research, breakthroughs and controversies often arrive hand in hand. The 1950s brought one of the most tantalizing yet disputed discoveries when Italian historian Francesco Giannazza uncovered financial records in Venetian archives detailing a massive transfer of gold from Cyprus to Venice in 1306, the year before the Templar arrests. These records documented the arrival of 12 ships carrying treasure of the temple under the protection of Venetian naval vessels. The gold was deposited with Venetian bankers under accounts registered to various trading companies rather than the order itself, suggesting a deliberate strategy to obscure ownership. Giannazza's findings might have revolutionized Templar historiography had they not disappeared under mysterious circumstances. Before publishing his full analysis, Giannazza died in a mountaineering accident, and his research notes vanished from his university office. Only his preliminary findings, shared with colleagues, preserved knowledge of the discovery. More substantiated was the 1962 discovery at Montségur in southern France, the last stronghold of the Cathar heretics, who had been exterminated in the 13th century Albigensian Crusade. During restoration work, workers uncovered a hidden chamber containing a silver pendant bearing both Cathar and Templar symbols alongside an encrypted parchment. The Montségur parchment, despite resistance to decryption, yielded partial translation, revealing references to sacred objects removed from the temple and guardians sworn to preserve the light. Radiocarbon dating confirmed its creation between 1290 and 1310, suggesting connections between Cathar and Templar secret knowledge. Perhaps the most significant archaeological breakthrough came in 1975 at Dôme in southwestern France, where Templars had been imprisoned after the 1307 arrests. Restoration of the prison walls revealed extensive carvings made by the imprisoned knights, not merely graffiti, but elaborate symbolic scenes, including star charts, architectural diagrams, and encrypted texts. Architectural historian John Peer Houdon's analysis of these carvings identified precise astronomical alignments corresponding to specific locations in southern France, Scotland, and Portugal. More remarkably, several of these locations matched sites mentioned in William Hammond's later discovered shipwreck documents. The Vatican's 2001 revelation of the Chunan parchment showing Pope Clement V had secretly absolved the Templars of heresy while publicly condemning them represented a seismic shift in understanding the political dimensions of the Templar suppression. This discovery raised questions about what other crucial documents might remain hidden in institutional archives. Technological breakthroughs enabled new types of discoveries. In 2005, restorers at the Temple Church in London employed ultraviolet light scanning to examine the effigies of medieval knights. This revealed previously invisible inscriptions and symbols that had faded beyond normal visual detection, but remained embedded in the stone. These inscriptions included astronomical notations, geometric figures, and abbreviated Latin phrases that collectively suggested a navigational system based on stellar observation. Similar markings were subsequently discovered at other Templar sites, suggesting a pattern of encoded information distributed across multiple locations. Digital Humanities brought another revolutionary approach through the Templar Banking Records Project, launched in 2008. This international academic collaboration digitized and analyzed thousands of financial documents from European archives, creating a comprehensive database of Templar economic activities before and after the suppression. Statistical analysis of these records revealed systematic anomalies beginning approximately 3 months before the arrests. Templar financial activities showed distinctive patterns: increased conversion of assets to portable wealth, unusual shipments to peripheral locations, and complex transactions involving third-party intermediaries, all suggesting preparation for the coming crisis. The most controversial recent discovery emerged from private research conducted by the Silicon Valley billionaire and medieval history enthusiast Peter Thacker. In 2013, he purchased a small French castle with Templar connections and discovered a hidden chamber during renovations containing a lead tube with rolled parchments. Expert analysis confirmed these documents as 14th century instruction manuals for Templar banking operations, including coded references to secure deposit locations throughout Europe. Most significantly, they detailed a system for maintaining financial continuity should the order face dissolution, essentially a contingency plan for preserving Templar wealth. Academic response to Thacker's find divided sharply. Skeptics questioned the convenient discovery by a wealthy enthusiast and noted inconsistencies in the document's provenance. Supporters pointed to authentication by independent experts and the document's consistency with known Templar banking practices. Another breakthrough came through genetic archaeology. DNA analysis of remains from a Templar cemetery in Cyprus, conducted by the University of Cambridge in 2016, revealed unexpected connections to later banking families. Several skeletons showed genetic markers linking them to ancestors of prominent European financial dynasties. This genetic evidence suggested more complex relationships between Templars and medieval banking families than previously recognized. Rather than simply eliminating the Templars, certain financial interests may have absorbed aspects of their organization and expertise, potentially including their wealth and commercial networks. Architectural analysis produced equally provocative findings. In 2017, digital modeling of Templar churches throughout Europe revealed that their seemingly irregular floor plans, when superimposed, created specific geometric patterns. These patterns, in turn, corresponded to astronomical configurations present during particular historical events. The most disputed finding of recent years emerged in 2019 when archaeologists excavating beneath the Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland discovered a sealed chamber containing a small copper chest. Inside were crystal vials of unknown liquid, parchment fragments bearing Templar symbols, and a small gold plate inscribed with text in multiple languages. Preliminary analysis suggested the gold plate contained directions to additional repositories with references to locations in France, Portugal, and Jerusalem. However, full publication of these findings has been delayed by legal disputes between researchers, the Sinclair family, traditional guardians of Rosslyn, and Scottish heritage authorities. Advances in imaging technology led to another significant discovery in 2020 when multispectral analysis of supposedly blank parchment pages in a Templar prayer book revealed text visible only under specific light frequencies. This hidden content detailed rituals for the protection and transmission of sacred knowledge during times of persecution. These discoveries share common elements. They provide tantalizing glimpses rather than complete revelations. They often involve disputed authenticity or interpretation, and they frequently suggest systematic planning by the Templars to preserve their legacy beyond their official dissolution. As medieval historian Dr. Elizabeth Crawford observed, what emerges from these discoveries is not proof of a single dramatic treasure hoard, but evidence of a sophisticated strategy for cultural and financial continuity. The Templars appear to have created a distributed network of knowledge, wealth, and influence designed to survive the order itself. The pattern of discoveries also reveals something about the nature of the Templar legacy. Rather than concentrating their assets in vulnerable physical locations, the Order seems to have distributed them across a network of people, places, and encoded knowledge, creating a puzzle where each piece reveals little in isolation. This distributed approach would explain why 7 centuries of searching has produced compelling fragments but never a decisive conclusion. The treasure may be designed to be fully comprehensible only when multiple elements are brought together, a security system ensuring that no single discovery could compromise the whole. Most intriguingly, recent findings suggest the Templars may have deliberately created their own myth, embedding clues, false leads, and partial revelations throughout Europe to ensure continued interest in their legacy. The treasure hunt itself may be part of a mechanism designed to preserve something the Knights valued more than gold. The Templar mystery does not exist in isolation, but connects to other persistent historical enigmas. Perhaps none is more tantalizing than Oak Island off the coast of Nova Scotia, where an elaborately engineered money pit has frustrated treasure hunters since its discovery in 1795. The Oak Island mystery bears striking Templar fingerprints. Its sophisticated flood trap system, designed to inundate the shaft if improper excavation is attempted, employs engineering principles documented in Templar military architecture. Carbon dating of wooden structures places their construction between 1300 and 1350, precisely when Templar refugees sought new havens. The island contains another compelling Templar connection, a stone cross formation identical to those found at confirmed Templar sites in Europe. Aerial mapping revealed this formation only in the 1980s, yet its alignment precisely matches celestial configurations significant in Templar astronomical systems. Geological analysis conducted in 2018 confirmed that the Money Pit's flood system could not have been constructed with colonial-era technology. Its design required advanced understanding of hydraulic engineering consistent with Templar military and architectural knowledge, but beyond the capabilities of 18th century local settlers. More compelling is the 2010 discovery of a small lead crossed during Oak Island excavations. Metallurgical analysis determined it was cast from lead mined in southern France, and its design matches crosses depicted on Templar seals. Independent dating placed its creation between 1200 and 1300 CEEF, Templars reached North America nearly 2 centuries before Columbus. It would explain another historical anomaly, the mysterious Zeno map of 1558. This controversial cartographic document depicts North Atlantic territories with surprising accuracy for its time, and includes annotations referencing men with crosses. Establishing settlements in the region. The French village of Rennes-le-Château presents another connected mystery. This remote settlement achieved fame through its 19th century priest, Berenger Saunière, who suddenly displayed inexplicable wealth after discovering something during church renovations. Saunière's subsequent behavior encoded messages in new church decorations and extensive coded correspondence suggests he uncovered information connected to Templar activities. Architectural analysis of Saunière's church renovations reveals numerous Templar symbols incorporated into the design. More tellingly, precise measurements of the modified structure create proportional relationships matching those found in confirmed Templar churches, suggesting Saunière had access to architectural knowledge specific to the order. Documents discovered in 2014 in French notarial archives reveal that Saunière consulted historical records specifically related to Templar properties in the region. His personal library, partially preserved by his housekeeper, contained several rare manuscripts dealing with Templar banking practices and encryption methods. The Rennes-le-Château mystery deepened with the 2017 discovery of a hidden chamber beneath the church floor. Though local authorities prevented excavation for structural safety reasons, ground-penetrating radar revealed metallic objects consistent with a small chest or coffer surrounded by what appear to be documentary materials. Another connected enigma involves the Newport Tower in Rhode Island, a mysterious stone structure long attributed to colonial settlers, but bearing architectural features inconsistent with colonial construction. Recent analysis identified specific proportional relationships and astronomical alignments matching those in European Templar structures. Carbon dating of mortar from the Newport Tower's original construction yielded dates ranging from 1300 to 1400 CE, far earlier than European colonial settlement in the region. Additionally, ground-penetrating radar surveys in 2019 identified foundation elements extending deeper than previously known, with construction techniques matching medieval European methods. The Scottish connection offers particularly compelling links. The St. Clair family, traditionally associated with Templar refugees, sponsored early expeditions to North America. Historical records confirm their vessels reached Greenland by the 1390s, and family documents reference more extensive explorations that conventional history does not acknowledge. Genetic studies provide unexpected support for these connections. DNA analysis of Native American populations in Nova Scotia and Massachusetts has identified European genetic markers dating to approximately 1300 to 1400 CE, suggesting contact and intermarriage with European visitors a century before officially recognized exploration. The Kensington Runestone, a controversial artifact discovered in Minnesota in 1898, describes a Norse expedition reaching the American interior in 1362, long dismissed as a hoax. Recent linguistic analysis suggests authenticity, and notably, it contains runic symbols with dual meanings in Templar, Cipher systems. Astronomical alignments create another web of connections. Researchers mapping the precise orientations of Templar structures throughout Europe discovered they create sight lines corresponding to sunset positions on specific dates. When extended across the Atlantic, several of these lines intersect at Oak Island and other locations with suspected Templar connections. Maritime. Historians note that the Templars possessed the naval capacity for Atlantic crossings. Their Mediterranean fleet included vessels specifically designed for transporting heavy cargo, and historical records confirm Templar navigators employed sophisticated astronomical techniques beyond conventional medieval practice. The documented Templar interest in sacred geometry appears in structures across these supposedly disconnected sites. Buildings at Oak Island, Rennes Le Chateau, and several suspected Templar locations in North America incorporate the Templar cubit, a specific measurement unit found exclusively in confirmed Templar constructions. Recently digitized records from Portuguese archives reveal that the Order of Christ, the direct Portuguese continuation of the Templars, financed early Atlantic explorations decades before officially documented voyages. These records reference earlier undocumented expeditions to islands beyond the Western Sea, dating to the 1340s. Even banking history provides connecting threads. The mysterious emergence of Swiss banking secrecy in the early 14th century coincides precisely with the Templar suppression. The specific legal mechanisms protecting financial privacy bear striking similarities to Templar banking practices documented in recently discovered manuscripts. The Vatican banking connection presents another link. Historical records confirm that certain Templar banking operations continued uninterrupted despite the order's official dissolution. The Papal Camera, Treasury, absorbed Templar banking expertise, incorporating their accounting methods and, some historians suggest, their actual financial networks. What emerges from these interconnected mysteries is not proof of a single conspiracy, but evidence of a sophisticated continuity strategy. The Templars appear to have dispersed their assets, both material and intellectual, across multiple repositories, ensuring that their legacy would survive even if individual elements were compromised. This distributed approach would explain why each connected mystery yields compelling evidence but never complete resolution. Each site or phenomenon represents one node in a network designed to preserve Templar wealth, knowledge, and influence beyond the Order's official existence. As archaeologist William Jensen observed, the genius of the Templar continuity strategy lies in its redundancy. By distributing their legacy across multiple locations, employing various sympathetic groups, and encoding key information in systems requiring multiple keys for decryption, it created a preservation mechanism nearly immune to complete elimination. The persistence of these connected mysteries across 7 centuries suggests not random coincidence but deliberate design, a sophisticated strategy for cultural transmission that has successfully preserved something the Templars valued enough to protect with extraordinary measures. Whether that something was primarily wealth, knowledge, or power remains the central question. The Vatican Secret Archives, officially renamed the Vatican Apostolic Archives in 2019, represent perhaps the greatest single repository of Templar-related documentation with records spanning more than 8 centuries and occupying 85 kilometers of shelving. These archives contain the official correspondence between the papacy and the order throughout its existence. The Vatican's complex relationship with Templar research has evolved over time. For centuries, access was severely restricted, with many documents classified under various levels of secrecy. A gradual opening began under Pope Leo XIII in 1881, but significant collections remained unavailable to researchers until much more recently. The 2001 discovery of the Chinon parchment demonstrated how crucial documents could remain hidden in plain sight. This essential record proving Pope Clement's private absolution of the Templars had been miscatalogued for centuries before. Vatican archivist Barbara Frau identified its true significance through careful paleographic analysis. This revelation transformed Templar historiography by confirming that the Pope privately considered the order innocent, while publicly supporting its suppression, suggesting a complex political calculation rather than genuine belief in Templar guilt. More importantly, it raised questions about what other significant documents might remain undiscovered or deliberately concealed. In 2010, the Vatican granted unprecedented access to selected scholars researching Templar financial operations. This project, led by economic historian Professor Michael Burton, examined previously restricted records of the papal camera treasury from 1295 to 1330, covering the critical period before and after the Templar suppression. Burton's research revealed an extraordinary finding. Templar banking operations continued essentially unchanged after 1312, but under different administrative control. The same financial mechanisms, accounting methods, and even many of the same personnel simply transferred to papal banking structures, suggesting institutional continuity beneath the surface disruption. More controversial was Burton's discovery of correspondence between Pope Clement V and Philip IV discussing certain materials of a sensitive nature recovered from Templar repositories. These letters, dated 1308, reference objects and documents requiring special disposition and arrangements for their secure storage within papal facilities. A particularly significant collection, known as the Templar Codices, remained classified under the highest level of Vatican secrecy until 2018. These 13 volumes contain transcripts of Templar interrogations never made public during the trials, specifically testimony about the order's activities in Jerusalem during their occupation of the Temple Mount. When finally made available to qualified researchers, these records revealed consistent accounts of Templar excavations beneath the Temple Mount and the discovery of certain sacred objects during the early 12th century. Multiple knights, questioned separately in different countries, provided remarkably consistent descriptions of these objects and the order's protocols for their protection. The Vatican's Congregation for the Doctrine of the Faith, successor to the Inquisition, maintains its own separate archives containing records of theological investigations. Documents from these collections, partially opened in 2021, include a previously unknown 1318 inquiry into certain practices and beliefs maintained by former Templars who had been absorbed into other religious orders. This inquiry documented the persistence of distinctive Templar rituals, astronomical observations, and theological concepts within monasteries throughout Europe. More significantly, It referenced an organized system for preserving and transmitting knowledge entrusted to the temple through networks of initiated monks across multiple orders. Perhaps most tantalizing are the references to the Templar treasury inventory, a document mentioned in multiple Vatican records but never made publicly available. This comprehensive catalog supposedly documented all assets held by the order at the time of suppression, including relics, manuscripts, and financial holdings, essentially a treasure map created by the very authorities who seized Templar properties. In 2019, a limited portion of this inventory was made available to researchers under strict controls. The released sections detail mundane assets like properties and livestock, but conspicuously omit any reference to relics, precious objects, or financial instruments, precisely the categories of greatest interest to Templar researchers. The Vatican Library, separate from the archives, contains another crucial resource, the only surviving complete copy of the Templar Rule, the Order's comprehensive governing document. While portions of the rule were published throughout medieval times, certain sections remained confidential within the Order, particularly those dealing with the protection of unspecified sacred trusts. Historian Margaret Williams granted access to this complete rule in 2017, identified previously unknown provisions, establishing protocols for preserving the Order's most precious possessions during times of crisis. These included designated secure repositories, communication systems, and contingency plans for operation under persecution. Diplomatic pressure has led to increased access to Vatican materials in recent decades, but significant collections remain restricted. The Templar Reliquary Documentation, a catalog of sacred objects allegedly recovered from the Order, was briefly made available to researchers in 2012 before being reclassified under direct papal authority. Those who viewed these documents reported detailed descriptions of artifacts claimed to have been recovered from Solomon's Temple, including fragments of the original Ark of the Covenant and stone tablets bearing ancient Hebrew inscriptions. However, no information about the current location of these objects was included in the accessible records. The Vatican is not alone in maintaining classified Templar documents. The French National Archives contain extensive records from Philip IV's treasury that remain under restricted access. These include inventories of items seized during the arrests and, most significantly, reports of royal agents who complained about finding less wealth than expected. British intelligence archives, declassified in 2015, revealed that during both World Wars, special units were tasked with securing and examining Templar-related documentation in occupied territories. These operations specifically targeted banking records, property documents, and architectural plans of Templar structures, suggesting military intelligence agencies saw strategic value in this historical information. Similarly, declassified CIA records include a 1950s project, codenamed Temple Light, that monitored academic research into Templar banking systems. The stated justification involved potential applications for tracking Soviet financial operations, but internal memoranda express specific interest in methods for moving and concealing large assets outside normal banking channels. The Russian State Military Archive contains captured German documents from the SS and Enerb unit that conducted Templar research during the Nazi period. Files declassified in 2010 detail expeditions to multiple Templar sites seeking evidence of alternative religious histories and, more pragmatically, documentation of hidden wealth. What emerges from these various archives is a consistent pattern. The official records confirm that something significant was discovered in Templar possession, something considered important enough that institutions of power have maintained interest for 7 centuries. Yet the precise nature of this something remains deliberately obscured. The obvious question arises: why would modern institutions maintain secrecy around medieval religious artifacts or historical documents? Some historians suggest the answer lies not in the objects themselves, but in what they represent, potentially disruptive challenges to established historical and religious narratives. As Vatican historian Father Thomas Morelli cautiously observed, the Church has always been concerned with preserving faith alongside historical truth. When these seem to conflict, careful discernment is required regarding what information serves the greater good. This principle has guided archival access policies throughout our history, whether protecting faith, power, or simply maintaining institutional traditions of secrecy. These archives collectively represent the largest repository of potential answers to the Templar mystery. As access gradually expands, researchers continue piecing together fragments of a puzzle designed to resist easy solution. Dawn broke over the limestone hills of southern France as Dr. Sophia Laurent checked her equipment one final time. The narrow shaft before her descended 15 meters into darkness, leading to a chamber identified through ground-penetrating radar, but never before entered by modern explorers. Recording systems online, confirmed her technical director, Michel Fournier, adjusting the helmet-mounted cameras that would document whatever lay below. Atmospheric sensors show normal oxygen levels and no detected toxins. The structural assessment indicates stable conditions, though I'd still recommend minimal disturbance to any artifacts. The expedition represented the culmination of 3 years' research, combining historical analysis, advanced technology, and old-fashioned archaeological fieldwork. Dr. Laurent's team had identified this location through a combination of medieval banking records, astronomical alignments in Templar architecture, and decoded references in recently discovered manuscripts. Unlike treasure hunters of previous centuries, Laurent approached the chamber with scientific methodology. Her international team included experts in medieval history, archaeology, conservation science, structural engineering, and digital documentation, all committed to preserving whatever they might find rather than exploiting it. Remember, Laurent briefed her team one final time, our primary objective is documentation. Nothing leaves the chamber without proper recording and conservation assessment. If we've found what the historical evidence suggests, this site has remained undisturbed for 700 years. We owe its creators the respect of proper scientific procedure. The descent began shortly after 7 a.m., with Laurent leading the 3-person initial entry team. The shaft, clearly human-made with tool marks still visible in the limestone, had been sealed with a carefully fitted stone cap that had defeated previous searchers but yielded to modern archaeological techniques. As Laurent reached the bottom, her lights revealed a small antechamber with walls bearing faded red crosses, the unmistakable Templar mark. More surprising were the other symbols interspersed between these crosses: astronomical notations, Hebrew characters, and geometric patterns matching those found at other Templar sites across Europe. The symbolism confirms Templar creation. Lawrence spoke into her recorder, but the integration of multiple traditions suggests this was no ordinary Templar repository. The astronomical markings correspond to the summer solstice position, circa 1300 CE, consistent with the dating from organic material in the shaft mortar. Beyond the antechamber lay a short passage leading to a sealed doorway. Unlike medieval construction, this barrier employed sophisticated engineering, a stone door fitted with such precision that no gap was visible along its edges. More remarkable was the locking mechanism, not a simple key system, but a complex arrangement of movable stone elements. This is consistent with descriptions in the Chia-Nan documents, noted historian Dr. Robert Kleinman, examining the door remotely through Lawrence video feed. The text described Templar repositories secured by locks answering only to knowledge rather than keys, essentially combination locks requiring specific information rather than physical tools. Using insights from newly translated Templar manuscripts, Lawrence carefully manipulated the stone elements in a sequence corresponding to astronomical configurations significant in Templar ritual. After several tense minutes, a barely audible click emanated from within the mechanism, and the massive door shifted slightly inward. "The combination worked," Lawrence whispered, her voice betraying rare emotion. "A locking system designed in the 14th century has just responded to the correct input sequence. This confirms that we're dealing with deliberate Templar concealment rather than simply abandoned storage." As the team carefully pushed the door open, their lights revealed a chamber approximately 6 meters square with a vaulted ceiling. Unlike the dramatic hoards of popular imagination, this space contained no piles of gold or glittering jewels. Instead, it held something potentially more valuable: knowledge preserved in multiple forms. The chamber's contents were methodically arranged. Wooden chests lined the walls, stone shelves held scrolls and bound manuscripts, and at the center stood a massive stone table bearing an intricate mosaic. Most striking was the remarkable state of preservation. The chamber's careful design had maintained stable temperature and humidity conditions for centuries. "The preservation system is ingenious," noted conservation specialist Dr. Elise Moreau, examining environmental monitoring data. "The chamber appears to employ natural ventilation through narrow shafts too small for human access. These moderate temperature and humidity fluctuations while allowing minimal airflow to prevent mold formation." As the documentation process began, the team methodically recorded the chamber's contents through photography, 3D scanning, and careful cataloging. The manuscripts, protected in sealed cylindrical containers, presented an immediate challenge: how to access their contents without risking damage to potentially fragile materials. These preservation techniques exceed known medieval practices, Laurent observed, carefully examining one of the containers. The Templars appear to have combined knowledge from multiple traditions: Byzantine preservation methods, Islamic chemistry, and Judaic archival techniques, creating environmental controls far beyond European capabilities of that era. First container opened contained a parchment scroll written in a complex cipher combining Latin, Greek, and Hebrew characters. Initial analysis suggested it documented Templar banking operations after the 1307 suppression, evidence of continued financial activity through networks of trusted associates across Europe and the Mediterranean. This appears to be a ledger, recording asset movements between 1307 and 1326, noted financial historian Dr. Marcus Cohen. If authentic, it provides the first conclusive evidence that Templar wealth continued to circulate through designated proxies long after the order's official dissolution. More revelatory was a collection of architectural drawings found in a sealed tube of unusual metal composition. These detailed plans showed excavations beneath the Temple Mount in Jerusalem, with annotations describing chambers and tunnels allegedly accessed during the Templar occupation of the Al-Aqsa Mosque. These correspond precisely with recent ground-penetrating radar surveys of the Temple Mount, Laurent noted with barely contained excitement. Modern imaging has identified void spaces in exactly these locations, but political sensitivities have prevented exploration. These drawings may be the only documentation of what exists beneath one of history's most contested religious sites. The chamber's central table proved particularly significant. Its mosaic surface depicted a detailed map combining geographical features with astronomical alignments. Analysis revealed it represented the western Mediterranean and Atlantic coastlines, with precisely placed markers at locations across Europe and, most surprisingly, indicators extending to North American coastlines. This suggests Templar knowledge of transatlantic geography decades before Columbus, observed cartographic specialist Dr. James Harrison. The coastal outlines of Nova Scotia and New England show accuracy impossible without direct observation. More significantly, markers on this map correspond precisely with sites like Oak Island, where Templar symbols have been discovered. As documentation proceeded, the team discovered a small recess behind one of the wooden chests. This concealed space contained the chamber's most extraordinary item, a metal cube, approximately 20 centimeters on each side, crafted from an alloy analysis identified as consistent with medieval Damascus steel. The cube's surfaces bore intricate engravings combining geometric patterns, astronomical symbols, and text in multiple languages. More remarkably, it featured mechanical elements suggesting it was not merely decorative but functional, some type of device whose purpose remained obscure. This object defies easy categorization, Laurent admitted, directing comprehensive scanning and documentation. The craftsmanship exceeds known medieval metallurgical capabilities, yet the material composition and manufacturing methods are consistent with the early 14th century. It appears to be a computational or astronomical device of extraordinary sophistication. As the documentation process continued, Laurent's team made another significant discovery. Beneath the central table lay a stone slab bearing a Latin inscription. Translated, it read, "Not all treasure shines with golden light. The temple's greatest wealth lies not in coffers, but in knowledge preserved through darkness until worthy minds might receive it." After 3 days of meticulous documentation, the team had recorded every artifact, document, and architectural feature of the chamber. The findings presented a remarkable picture, not a simple treasure repository, but a sophisticated, time capsule deliberately created to preserve knowledge through centuries. What we've found here isn't the Templar treasure as traditionally imagined, Laurent explained during a team conference. It's something potentially more valuable, evidence of a systematic effort to preserve scientific, mathematical, architectural, and geographical knowledge that would otherwise have been lost during medieval suppressions of heterodox thinking. The manuscripts revealed particular emphasis on astronomical knowledge, sacred geometry, advanced architectural techniques, and navigational methods far beyond conventional medieval capabilities. Many contained references to wisdom preserved, from the Temple of Solomon and knowledge entrusted to the Order's protection. Perhaps most historically significant were financial documents detailing how Templar wealth was redistributed through networks of trusted associates, noble families, merchant houses, and monastic orders. These records showed Templar assets continuing to circulate long after the Order's dissolution, eventually forming the foundation of later banking systems. We're seeing evidence of a deliberate continuity strategy, Laurent concluded. Rather than a single treasure hoard vulnerable to discovery and seizure, the Templars created a distributed system, multiple repositories containing complementary knowledge, accessible only to those who possessed keys to their sophisticated protection methods. As the team prepared to conclude their documentation, Laurent faced the expedition's most challenging decision: what to do with their discoveries. Academic protocol demanded publication, but the chamber's contents raised complex ethical questions about potentially disruptive historical revelations and competing claims from various institutions. This knowledge was deliberately preserved, Laurent told her team. The Templars created this chamber not as a tomb for secrets, but as a seed, vault for ideas they deemed worthy of survival. Our responsibility extends beyond mere documentation to understanding their purpose and respecting their intentions. The team ultimately decided on a carefully calibrated approach: complete academic documentation of the chamber and its contents, strategic publication of findings that expanded historical understanding without sensationalism, and continued protection of the site itself from exploitation or destruction. What we've discovered isn't an endpoint, but a beginning, Laurent reflected as the team carefully resealed the chamber with modern conservation methods, ensuring its continued preservation. This is one node in a network of knowledge, the Templars, distributed across Europe and perhaps beyond, a network we're only beginning to comprehend. As dawn broke on their final day at the site, Laurent stood at the entrance to the shaft, contemplating the broader implications of their discovery. The true Templar treasure was never gold or relics, she said quietly. It was a vision of knowledge preserved beyond the reach of those who would suppress it, a legacy designed to survive centuries of darkness until the world was ready to receive it. The Laurent expedition, as it came to be known, transformed Templar scholarship without definitively solving the central mystery. The chamber's contents, now secured in climate-controlled facilities at the Sorbonne, continue yielding insights. Through painstaking translation, conservation, and analysis by international specialists, the financial documents proved particularly revelatory, confirming long-suspected connections between Templar banking operations and the emergence of later European financial systems. Records showed how Templar assets were systematically transferred to trusted associates, creating wealth streams that eventually contributed to Renaissance banking families. We can now trace direct lines of financial continuity, explained economic historian Dr. Sophia Rossi. Templar assets didn't simply vanish but transformed, flowing through protected channels into new institutional structures. This wasn't embezzlement, but a deliberate preservation strategy established before the arrests, suggesting the order anticipated its suppression. The astronomical and navigational materials suggested knowledge far beyond conventional medieval understanding. Star charts showed precision impossible without sophisticated observational instruments, while navigational calculations demonstrated methods for accurate longitude determination centuries before official historical development of such techniques. Most controversial were geographical materials showing apparent knowledge of transatlantic territories. While skeptics suggested these might represent theoretical calculations or copies of earlier Viking discoveries, specific coastal details of North American shorelines matched modern cartography with accuracy difficult to dismiss as coincidence. These documents don't prove Templar presence in the Americas, noted cartographic historian Dr. James Fernandez, but they demonstrate knowledge beyond what conventional history attributes to 14th century European navigation. Combined with archaeological findings at sites like Oak Island, they present a compelling case for pre-Columbian transatlantic contact. The mysterious cube device eventually yielded to analysis by specialists in medieval technology and astronomy. Their conclusion: it functioned as a sophisticated astronomical computer, combining elements of astrolabe, equatorium, and calculator, capable of predicting planetary positions and solar phenomena with remarkable accuracy. This device represents a technological synthesis drawing from multiple traditions, explained Dr. Elena Vassallo, specialist in medieval scientific instruments. It incorporates mathematical principles from Islamic astronomy, mechanical elements, with Byzantine origins and computational methods documented in Hebrew astronomical texts, embodying the Templar access to diverse knowledge streams. Archaeological expeditions to locations marked on the chamber's mosaic map have yielded mixed results. Several European sites revealed previously unknown medieval structures with Templar architectural signatures. 2 North American locations yielded carbon-dated materials confirming 14th century European presence, though direct Templar connection remains unproven. Perhaps most significant was the discovery's impact on understanding Templar motivation. The preserved materials revealed an organization committed not merely to military or financial objectives, but to knowledge preservation during an era when intellectual exploration often faced dangerous opposition from both religious and secular authorities. The Templars appear to have functioned partly as a knowledge trust, observed historian Dr. Thomas Bennett. Their activities in Jerusalem gave them access to classical and Near Eastern texts lost to Western Europe during the post-Roman period. The order became custodian of mathematical, astronomical, and architectural knowledge considered heterodox by medieval standards. This knowledge preservation mission explains the elaborate security measures protecting Templar repositories. The combination locks, geographical distribution, astronomical alignments, and encoded texts serve not merely to hide wealth, but to ensure that accumulated knowledge would survive even if the order itself did not. The Vatican's response to the Lorent discoveries revealed institutional complexity. Official statements acknowledged the Chamber's historical significance while emphasizing the need for careful scholarly analysis. Unofficially, Vatican historians received unprecedented authorization to cross-reference the findings with previously restricted archival materials. This comparative analysis yielded another breakthrough, confirmation that items described in the Chamber's documents matched objects listed in classified Vatican inventories. This correspondence validated the authenticity of both sources and suggested that material artifacts recovered during the Templar suppression had indeed entered papal collections. We're seeing the outlines of a more complex historical narrative, explained Dr. Margaret Williams, granted special access to Vatican materials. Documents suggest Pope Clement may have negotiated a private arrangement with Templar leadership, preserving certain knowledge and objects within church structures, while publicly supporting the order's dissolution. The controversial sacred objects referenced in multiple documents remain subject to scholarly debate. Some historians interpret these as actual relics recovered from Jerusalem, while others suggest they represented scientific instruments or texts considered too advanced or heterodox for general medieval circulation. Financial analysis of the documented asset movements revealed another significant pattern: the strategic placement of Templar wealth into institutions and families that would later fund Renaissance art, architecture, and scholarship. This suggests a deliberate investment in cultural and intellectual development rather than simple wealth preservation. We may need to reconsider the Renaissance itself, proposed cultural historian Dr. Alessandro Conti. The sudden flourishing of art, architecture, and scientific inquiry may have been partly funded by deliberately preserved Templar assets, strategically deployed generations after the order's suppression to advance knowledge previously preserved in secret. Modern technology continues revealing new dimensions of the Templar legacy. Spectral imaging of Templar-built structures has identified previously invisible markings that, when mapped across multiple sites, create a sophisticated navigation system. This network of visual indicators would have been recognizable only to those with specific knowledge of Templar. SYMBOLOGY. Digital analysis of architectural proportions across Templar structures throughout Europe has identified consistent mathematical relationships based on astronomical calculations. These properties create natural acoustic and lighting effects that would have enhanced ritual activities and potentially encoded additional layers of information through environmental factors. The Damascus steel cube from Lorent's discovery has inspired particular interest from materials scientists. Analysis reveals metallurgical techniques previously thought impossible in medieval Europe, suggesting transfer of advanced material science from Islamic sources through Templar networks, and preserved through subsequent generations of European craftsmen. Historical finance specialists have traced the evolution of Templar banking concepts through subsequent centuries, identifying their influence on financial innovations from Renaissance Italy to modern banking. Templar development of letters of credit, secure fund transfers, and early investment vehicles established foundations for the global financial system. The Templar legacy surrounds us in ways we rarely recognize, noted financial historian Dr. Jonathan Keyes. Their innovations in secure transactions, distributed trust networks, and international finance created templates still visible in our economic systems. Modern banking, in many respects, operates on principles developed and refined by Templar financial administrators. As research continues, the central question evolves. Was there ever a single Templar treasure as imagined in popular culture? The evidence increasingly suggests something more sophisticated, a distributed network of knowledge, wealth, and influence deliberately designed to transcend the Order's official existence. This network appears to have operated through various channels: banking families preserving financial techniques, architectural guilds maintaining design principles, scholarly orders protecting texts and scientific knowledge, and potentially secret societies transmitting symbolic systems and philosophical concepts. The Templars created something more durable than a physical treasure hoard, concluded Dr. Laurent in her definitive publication on the Chamber discoveries. They constructed a legacy designed to survive persecution through distribution, encryption, and strategic transmission to selected inheritors across generations. This perspective transforms our understanding of the treasure itself. Rather than gold and jewels, the true Templar treasure may have been a complex matrix of knowledge drawn from multiple traditions: mathematical, astronomical, architectural, financial, and philosophical, preserved through a time when such intellectual synthesis faced significant dangers. If this interpretation is correct, the Templar treasure was never lost. It evolved, dispersed, and recombined through subsequent centuries, influencing Renaissance thought, Enlightenment science, modern finance, and architectural traditions that continue shaping our world today. Yet physical treasures likely existed as well. The documented movement of Templar wealth before the Erists suggests strategic relocation of valuable assets. Whether these took the form of gold repositories, sacred relics, or precious manuscripts, substantial material wealth appears to have escaped Philip IV's grasp. The evidence points to multiple destinations for these physical treasures, some entering Vatican collections through diplomatic arrangements, others transferred to sympathetic noble families or banking houses, some relocated to territories beyond French control, and potentially some transported to more distant locations, including colonial territories. We should envision Templar treasure not as a single entity, but as a diversified portfolio, suggested financial historian Dr. Maria Gonzalez. The Order applied the same sophisticated risk management to their legacy that they pioneered in banking, distributing assets across multiple repositories with different risk profiles and accessibility conditions. This diversified approach explains why 7 centuries of searching has produced compelling fragments, but never a definitive resolution. The treasure was designed to resist complete discovery, with multiple elements secured through geographical distribution, encoded knowledge requirements, and carefully selected custodial lineages. Modern Templar research increasingly focuses on these transmission vectors, tracing how Templar knowledge, wealth, and traditions continued through subsequent organizations and family lineages. This approach yields more productive insights than the traditional treasure hunting focus on singular hoards or dramatic relics. The Laurent chamber, rather than representing the Templar treasure itself, appears to be one node in this distributed network, a knowledge repository designed to activate under specific conditions, preserving crucial information until it could safely re-enter wider circulation through prepared recipients. The chamber functioned as a time capsule with sophisticated access controls, Laurent explained. Its combination lock mechanism, geographical location, encoded through astronomical alignments, and contents requiring specific knowledge for interpretation created a selective transmission system for knowledge. The Templars deemed important enough to preserve beyond their own existence. As research continues, new Templar connections emerge in unexpected places. Architectural principles preserved in their structures influenced Renaissance designers like Brunelleschi. Banking innovations resurfaced in Venetian and later Dutch. Financial systems. Navigational techniques documented in their charts informed age of exploration ventures. The Oak Island money pit, long a source of speculation, gains new context from the Laurent discoveries. Its sophisticated engineering matches techniques documented in the chamber's architectural manuscripts, while its location corresponds precisely with coordinates encoded in the mosaic map, suggesting it represents another node in the Templar. Preservation Network .rennes-Le Chateau similarly acquires fresh significance. Documents from the chamber reference a repository in the region containing knowledge of the temple lineages, potentially, explaining priest Berenger Saunier's mysterious discoveries and subsequent wealth. The encoded measurements in his church renovations match proportional systems, detailed in the chamber's architectural manuscripts. The distributed nature of the Templar legacy ensures that no single discovery will ever completely resolve the mystery. Each new finding illuminates one facet of a deliberately fragmented whole, a puzzle designed to be fully comprehensible only when multiple elements are brought together with the proper interpretive framework. This sophisticated preservation strategy represents perhaps the Templars' most remarkable achievement. Beyond their military conquests, architectural innovations, or financial developments, they created a knowledge transmission system that has successfully operated across 7 centuries of European history, preserving ideas and information that might otherwise have been lost. As we contemplate this legacy, we confront a final question. Has the Templar treasure fulfilled its purpose? If their objective was not merely preservation, but eventual restoration of knowledge into wider circulation when conditions permitted, then perhaps the gradual rediscovery of their distributed legacy represents not failure, but success. The Templar mystery endures not because the treasure remains hidden, but because its true nature transcends our conventional understanding of value. Beyond gold or relics, the Templars preserved something more precious, knowledge that bridged traditions, transcended cultural boundaries, and connected ancient wisdom with future potential. In the end, perhaps the search itself represents part of the Templar design, a mechanism ensuring continued interest in their legacy across centuries. By creating a mystery compelling enough to inspire generation after generation of seekers, they guaranteed that their knowledge would never be forgotten, even when it could not be fully revealed. The treasure, in this sense, is not something to be found, but something to be understood, a legacy that continues unfolding through ongoing discovery, interpretation, and integration into our understanding of history. The Templars created not merely a hoard to be uncovered, but a heritage to be inherited. As our technological and scholarly capabilities advance, new dimensions of this heritage become accessible. Modern imaging reveals hidden architectural features. Computer analysis deciphers complex encoded texts. Scientific testing authenticates artifacts and dates structures each development, bringing us closer to comprehending the full scope of what the Templars sought to preserve. Yet some aspects may remain perpetually beyond our grasp, not because the evidence doesn't exist, but because full understanding requires perspectives we haven't yet developed. Like the combination lock securing the Laurent chamber, certain aspects of the Templar legacy may open only when we ask the right questions in the right sequence. The mystery continues not because answers don't exist, reflected Dr. Laurent, but because the Templars created a puzzle where the questions evolve alongside our understanding. Each discovery doesn't end the search but transforms it, revealing new dimensions of a legacy designed to grow rather than diminish with time. And so the quest continues, not for a singular treasure that would resolve all questions, but for a deeper understanding of how the Templar legacy has shaped our world, in ways both visible and hidden. The true measure of their achievement lies not in gold or relics, but in the enduring power of their ideas, transmitted across centuries through channels they designed specifically for that purpose. For those who seek the Templar treasure today, perhaps the most valuable discovery is this: we already possess much of what they sought to preserve. Their mathematical knowledge, architectural principles, financial innovations, and philosophical concepts have gradually been integrated into our collective understanding, fulfilling the purpose for which they were originally hidden. The final secret of the Templar treasure may be that it was never intended to remain secret forever. Like a time-release capsule designed to preserve medicine until it's needed, the Templar preservation system protected knowledge through periods of hostility until it could safely re-emerge to influence a more receptive world. In this light, our continuing fascination with the Templar mystery represents not failure to solve a puzzle, but participation in a process the Order itself designed, a gradual revelation of preserved knowledge across centuries, unfolding at a pace measured not in years but in generations, guided by hands long since turned to dust, but reaching still toward the future.